points this year.
Well, Dennis, for so long, you've been looking for the elusive combination, and you actually found it in a unique way, the fact that you actually went down on horsepower, but that immediately put you into the winner's circle. Can you tell us how that happened?
Yeah, well, doing away with a lot of the horsepower, I've done away with a lot of breakage, you know, and we've been digging around for a good combination. This is a brand new motor we're running now, and we've still got a few bugs here and there, but this is the best combination we've had to work with yet, you know, the motor combination and gearing combination, and I've got my transmission squared away now, so we're going to hang in there.
And another big story from last week, Ron Litzau's USA 1 National Champion Chevrolet. Ladies and gentlemen, if this brick could only talk, oh, what a story it could tell.
Rod Litzau can talk, and he'll flat tell you the story of how he took that brick out of the column at the end of the runway in the Chicago Amphitheater last week. Here's the first run of Rod Litzau last week that was a controversial one, or at least a dangerous one for him, because he smacked the wall hard. You saw the bricks fly out, but Army Armstrong was the second run that really scared everybody.
This was a run that had Chicago quiet for about 2 minutes. Litzau came off the end. There's a concrete embankment at the end of the track and almost impales the truck, goes right through the driver's compartment where Litzau was sitting for a few brief moments. Everyone was holding their breath. We were literally scared to death. Litzau and the crew came out of the truck unscathed. He did go to the hospital. He was checked out. The EMT, the safety people were right on the spot. But believe me, Scott, if that's any indication, 1989, it is going to be an action year.
Also, we're taking you to Louisville, Kentucky, the granddaddy of them all, the National Farm Machinery Show. We're in the Pro Stock Tractor Division. Already quite some action coming up from the National Farm Machinery Show. But when we come back, we're going to Chicago's Amphitheater for monster truck qualifying on tough tracks. Challenge. I'm Scott Douglas along with Army Armstrong, and we're inside at the Chicago Amphitheater, and it's time for the qualification round with the TNT monster trucks trying to set the field off the qualification time for how they're going to compete in the side-by-side eliminations. And here comes the one they all come to see, Army. Gravedigger Dennis Anderson out of Chesapeake, Virginia.
You know, Scott, it's really amazing when he comes in the building with those red lights, those beady red lights, the crowd just kind of takes a deep breath because they know something's going to happen. In this case, Dennis Anderson, the Gravedigger, won last week's show, currently your national points leader, would love to get quick qualifying time, and look at this. He literally attacked the track, wheels up. What a shot, Scott.
And it was a great shot. No air under him, but yet he got superb speed. We'll check the time, and they've got one they got to try and beat, 4.29.
That is quick indoors.
Wow, Gravedigger. Dennis Anderson has given them a time to shoot at, and they're going to have to shoot hard. Here comes the equalizer, David Morris out of Springfield, Tennessee, who we'll learn a little more about later in the show.
We told you last week about Morris coming into the circuit with a new concept. The concept being in the suspension of the truck. A rookie driver, a good driver. He stays close to the ground. You know, a few years ago, Scott, everybody tried to get up in the air. Now they're trying to keep them down on the deck where they keep those big tires churning to the tune of a 4.59. They're flying like rockets inside this building.
Boy, they are really getting off the mark, of course, coming back to Chicago's Amphitheater, and the equalizer putting down an excellent run. Here's the master of disaster, Doug Spanier from Albany, Minnesota.
Doug, one of the strong chargers, runs the the 89 Chevrolet sheet metal supercharged big block Chevrolet. Working that left side, comes out, green light. He also attacks the track. I look for a premier day today. Spanier backing it down. They're scared of the wall, and I don't blame them one bit. A 5:03, and they're hitting the brakes as soon as they pass that finish line.
Excellent run for the master of disaster and Doug Spanier. Well, I believe we're going to get a look now at Awesome Kong, and certainly Awesome Kong with a new driver, Mark Brandt, out of Justin, Texas. It is another of those trucks that people really come to see because it stands out.
The truck, it's amazing, the physical aspects of the truck. It's narrow. It's kind of awesome, literally, to look at. Now, Mark Brandt's a new driver on the tour. Jeff Dane has put, he's got some problems. Transfer case completely let go. You notice he locks the rear wheels up, slides to a wall with a, look at that. He broke and still went 4.5, 4.52. And he had major problems on that run, Scott.
Isn't that incredible? He just really came awfully hard off the starting line.
Yeah, he left the starting line. He's a rookie driver. He's new. I believe that could have caused the breakage. He got a lot of air when he was up in the air. He was on the throttle when it landed. Something had to give. Replay comes up and shows us exactly that. When he landed, problems right there for the youngster out of Texas. That is about a $2,000 pop. I don't believe we're going to see him in action this afternoon, Scott.
Well, you really hit it. You can really tell on that replay. The first shot onto the cars is when the sparks started flying. So awesome Kong with problems, obviously, for the new driver, Mark Brandt, out of Justin, Texas. Qualifying round, setting up the first round matchups on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Boy, that's a great shot looking at the mess. Let's go over now to Army Armstrong. He's going to get the word from Mark Brandt.
Well, Mark Brandt, Jeff Dane taking the truck back in the pit area. Something really went away in that qualifying, Scott. What was it?
Yeah, the transfer case exploded, and it doesn't look good. They're calling me crazy Mark Brandt. I think maybe I was a little too crazy.
Well, Jeff Dane, the owner of the truck, obviously unhappy with that situation as things went bad for Awesome Kong, Army.
Well, that was in that round of qualifying. Look who's going to be coming out now. Last week, this young man found the handle. The handle was in the form of pure raw horsepower. Bob Breen had been running for about 2 years down on horsepower. Those days are gone. He is a player for this national championship point chase.
He had a good week last week here. Let's see how he does tonight in qualifying out of Jefferson City, Missouri. Bob Breen and Wild Hair. Looked like a pretty good run. Let's check the clock.
It was a good run, conservative for Breen. He goes a 492. He's going to be satisfied with that.
Wild Hair and Bob Breen putting down his qualification run to set up the first round matchup here at the TNT Monster Truck Challenge in Chicago. And here comes one of the crowd favorites out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher.
Well, last week the Crusher finished that number 2 spot. That puts him number 2 in the national points chase, so he knows he's definitely going to be a player for this championship. Everybody right now is just about equal. The only guys that are sitting out in front of everybody are the Gravedigger and the Carolina Crusher, and Porter wants to get another run. This week, Scott, they're staying closer to the cars. They're not getting as much air.
They really are, and it's helped the speed, it seems to, and Gary Porter has a great run at 4.79 in the Carolina Crusher. So that'll do it for the qualifying. Gravedigger is the fastest qualifier. Now we'll set the pairings and get ready for the first round matchup. It is great action from the Amphitheater in Chicago coming your way as TNT Motorsports brings you the best on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. And when we come back, it will be that first round side-by-side competition here on Tough Tracks. Don't you dare move. Stay with us. Theater in Chicago. I'm Scott Douglas with Army Armstrong. TNT Monster Truck Challenge action. The qualification's complete. We're now set to go in the first round. Gravedigger, fast qualifier, gets a bye. Then the 5th fastest qualifier, the Master of Disaster, will go against Barbarian. Then it'll be Nightlife taking on No Problem. Good matchup there. Carolina Crusher has drawn Mad Dog. Wild Hair goes up against Playing for Keeps, and you'll note the fast loser will automatically come back in the quarterfinals as well. Then Clydesdale against MOPAR Magic, and we'll round it out Equalizer going up against Stomper. So it ought to be some great matchups in this first round here at Chicago.
Well, I tell you, Scott, everybody is excited about this when the Gravedigger comes out for that bye run, and he doesn't backpedal too much. He's made a good shot.
So Gravedigger just has to run, but he always likes to put on a good show, Dennis, and he gets a feel for later races as well.
You know, it's amazing how the people, just when that truck comes in the building, you can feel the people generate excitement. Speaking of excitement, the Barbarian Ford's going to be coming out now. Ford is going to be going against the Chevrolet, the Master of Disaster, going against the Barbarian.
Ought to be an excellent matchup. Here they go. They get the green light, and they go after it side by side. A good race, but you look at Frost, and indeed, it is going to be that Chevy, the Master of Disaster, coming through with the victory.
Chevrolet worked the left side of the track. Both trucks came over the hump, the initial hump, very conservatively. I think we're going to see a different driving style this week on the tour because of the wall incident last week with Litzow. That is in everybody's mind right now.
All right, Doug Spanier with the win there. There you see John Moore, Lafayette, Tennessee, and No Problem. His matchup is against Dave Wachorik on Nightlife out of Grand Island, Nebraska.
What we're going to see is a new John Moore. Now, John Moore had gained a reputation for kind of backpedaling and taking it easy. I think those days are gone. You watch him. He's coming after the Chevrolet. Look at the Ford go. It is a close race. Chevrolet looks like he's going to take a win, but believe me, Moore flat pushed him. He may be back in that quick loser bracket, Scott.
You're right. He did give it a great run, but Nightlife comes out of there with the victory. So we'll move on in first round, side-by-side eliminations to see who can move on to the next round of the TNT Monster Truck Challenge in Chicago, Illinois. Now, Playing for Keeps will come up a little bit later, but right now we want to look at Mad Dog and Carolina Crusher. John Breen out of Jefferson City, Missouri, Last week we saw him lose to Brother Bob, so you know he wants to come back and redeem himself today.
Yeah, but look who he draws up next to, the Carolina Crusher. Finished second last week. Would like to put a win under his belt this week. What's going to happen? The Crusher. Porter is dominating this afternoon. He is going to be one to watch out for.
Boy, Gary Porter's so tough. Out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, the very popular and likable young man and driver of the Carolina Crusher. I mentioned playing for keeps earlier. We're going to get a look at that truck right now. And Jesse Berkey out of Wyoming, Michigan. His opponent will be Wild Hair in the other Bream, Bob Bream, ready to go.
Keep an eye on Bream. We told you the story about him. He's waited for years to have some horsepower. That is the case. Bream is sitting with it like a Cheshire cat. He's got a grin from ear to ear because for the first time in his monster truck career, he is a contender. And look at that. He completely dominates the mountain man in that left lane.
Boy, is he running tough. We'll keep our eye on Bob Bream and the Wild Hair once again today in Chicago, Illinois. On the next matchup for the fans in Chicago, we'll send Gary Wiggins and Mopar Magic out of Williamston, North Carolina, up against Bennett Clark's Clydesdale. Bennett from Powder Springs, Georgia.
Well, the Dodge-powered vehicle is going to be going against the Chevrolet. Advantage, I would say, would have to go to the Chevrolet for one reason. It's a longer wheelbase. The Clydesdale truck on the far side of the track is the longest truck on the tour, and it handles completely different than anybody else, and it's handling good today. Clydesdale will advance, Scott.
Okay, Bennett Clark with an excellent run, and Clydesdale indeed gets a victory here in first-round action from Chicago. And we've got one more matchup in the first round, and that'll bring out another of the real popular trucks in Stomper, and old starving Marvin Smith out of Arnold, Missouri, and his opponent will be the Equalizer as he goes up against David Morris from Springfield, Tennessee.
This is going to be an even race, I believe. Last week, you saw Smith have to come back from a near flip. Wow, you talk about a race. Look at this kid from Tennessee. Whoa, what a run. The Equalizer definitely got his act together.
It looks like David Morris out of Springfield, Tennessee is beginning to serve just a little bit of notice. Hey, guys, I know Gravedigger, I know Carolina Crusher, I know even Wild Hair. They're getting the noise, but let's keep our eye on the Equalizer because obviously David Morris has come loaded for the big guns today in Chicago. We're going to did it, but did it. The Bandit, 205.50. So that gives the lead right there to the Bandit and Mike Monreal. Mike Goss is going to go over and catch up with Monreal.
Mike, you're on top of this thing just barely. I know, I can't believe it. When I pulled down there, that was, it's real close.
Stan Johnson, Rawhide of Shelbyville. You're looking at the Keystone Cop, of course, as Monreal shakes her hand, but now it's Monreal who has to get the pressure army you just talked about with Sue Ellen. He's waiting to see if Stan Johnson here in Rawhide from Shelbyville, Illinois, is going to be able to overtake his shot.
Believe me, Johnson's going to come after you in a heartbeat. He's carrying the big green colors inside this building. Everybody that's got green on is cheering for this John Deere. Let's see what he can do. Again, the driver, it's amazing watching these fellas how intent they are when they leave that starting line. They've got to get the horsepower. They've got to get it to the ground awfully quick inside Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky. Ground speed is not there, Scott. The ground speed just did not come around on the John Deere, but he keeps moving. He literally was strong-arming that rawhide John Deere to the other end. A 2:05 the lead distance. Looky here, new leader in green, a 2:08.74.
He did almost everything but get off, grab that thing, and pull it further. That is your new leader, Stan Johnson, Rawhide of Shelbyville, Illinois, and you called it so well. Let's see who's going to come out there next. It looks like Menace will be next to take a shot. Now, this is Dennis SHRAMEK from Williamsburg, Missouri, and he's got to beat that 2:08.
Well, Dennis knows the track's getting better. We started at 2:05. They bumped it out a little bit more to 2:05.5. Now 2:08. So the track is showing it'll hold horsepower. Let's see what this young man can do. They're all starting on the starting line in about the same area. The Alice Chalmer rolls out. A little bit of smoke starting to come out the top. The driver sits right in the middle of it, but this is Louisville. You got a goal for the goal. Let's see what he's going to do. He works a little bit to the right. Not going to be there. The 2:08 will...
This is to beat Menace well short at 192.73. Well, I guess it's time to look at the defending champion here at the Farm Machinery Show now. Don Masterson from Grandview, Indiana, is going to bring out Tinker Toy, and Don Masterson has to beat that distance of 2:08 and change to take the lead. Here's the guy who won it last year, Army.
He won it last year. He's just about an hour from home, and a lot of people from his area want to see him do it 2 in a row. You notice the exhaust going back into the specially formulated exhaust stack that keeps the fumes out of the Louisville Freedom Hall building, so these people can see runs just like this. Look at Masterson. He drifts up, wheels up in the air, going to the left side of the track, Scott.
I think he's going to do it. He went past the cone. It should have it. Here comes the distance reading, but it looks like it's going to be 2 in a row. There it is, 2:16.14 for Don Masterson and Tinker Toy out of Grandview, Indiana.
So for the second year in a row, the Pro Stock crown goes back into Southern Indiana. Masterson has everybody on their feet in Southern Indiana with a win. To Mike Goss for the interview.
Don, it looked like perfect balance on that run.
Yeah, we were real lucky there and really enjoyed that.
Now, you won this thing last year, too, didn't you?
Yes, sir. We kicked some this time.
What did he say there, Army? No,
Well, I tell you what, actions speak louder than words, Scott, and he was like a fast-moving freight. I've said it before, but it's a perfect example, just pure, raw horsepower. The American way, he just nailed them to the wall.
The Tinker Toy, John Deere, #1, Rawhide finishes second. Then it's Bandit. There's Sue Ellen Oswald and the Keystone Cop Menace. Rounds out the top 5 in great competition at the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville. We're going to take a short break, but you can't go anywhere because when we come back, it's more monster truck action as we go back to Chicago for the Monster Quarterfinals on Tough Tracks. Problem against Carolina Crusher and Gary Porter. Carolina Crusher took out Mad Dog. Now, Wild Hair played for keeps matched up earlier. That one went to Wild Hair, so he'll meet the fast loser, which was Mad Dog. So that'll be interesting again. And then Clydesdale and MOPAR Magic in the first round. That one went to Clydesdale. Now he draws Equalizer in quarterfinal round competition. I really, Army, love the matchups for this quarterfinal round.
It's going to be a Donnybrook. Any of these trucks can go into the final. One thing that I'm noticing, we're standing on the end of the track watching. I believe there's definitely a difference. You watch the right side and the left side. The trucks that are coming off the right side of this track are not getting onto the car smooth. They're taking some really weird bounces. They're really getting a lot of air. Meanwhile, on the far side track, it seems to be smoother. See what I mean?
Boy, he's been smooth everywhere, though.
Gravedigger, nose down, went through. The Master Disaster, so much air, it had to kill him. He had to backpedal. So Anderson marches on another round.
Dennis Anderson and the Gravedigger out of Chesapeake, Virginia. Army's going to get him and talk to him real quick.
Dennis Anderson, you're starting your march maybe for another win. It's looking awfully good out there this afternoon.
Yeah, it is. Everything's working real well for us, feeling good. I got a lot of confidence in the truck now.
Yeah, the brakies doesn't seem to bother you. You seem to be a little bit more at ease. Is that what it is, just the fact that it's confidence?
That's what it was. There for a while we were braking so much, I was leery over my confidence in the truck, but I'm gaining my confidence back now. Feeling good about the truck. I think we're going to hang in there.
Can you make it 2 wins in 2 weeks in a row?
I'm almost sure I can.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
We do know he'll go on to the semis, but now another quarterfinal matchup. Here's Carolina Crusher on the lane that Army keeps talking about as the good one against Nightlife.
Nightlife, like I say, is going to have to do something. The short wheelbase may be the advantage of Nightlife. I don't know. If I were picking, I would go with the Carolina Crusher in this round. The question is, what lane will the winner go in against Anderson? Anderson, with quick qualifying time, is going to have his choice all night long. And again, that's an awfully close race, though, Scott.
Very tight, but it did look like Gary Porter and Carolina Crusher had it by just maybe a foot or two at the finish line indeed. Carolina Crusher comes away with the victory. Gary Porter out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, who's been awfully tough, comes away with a victory in this one, and we'll move on to the semifinals. Let's go over to Army and get to talk to Gary Porter.
Well, you got to take it one step at a time. It's exactly what you're doing. Truck feel okay to you today?
Yes, it feels pretty good. My motor popped a little bit that time. I had to get back in the pits and make a little fine-tuning on it to get it ready for the next round.
It's time once again for the Brothers Show. It'll be Mad Dog and Wild Hair. Army, we saw it last week, and now the Breen boys are matched up head-to-head once again.
You know, this is kind of interesting because even though they're brothers, they both want to have bragging rights on this. Now, we'll say they go around the country together, and last week the replay comes up on the screen. You can see Bob Breen completely dominated. And look, he really went after his brother. The air was awesome on that run, but he wanted to put his brother away. That's the first time he had ever done it. Now, John Breen comes back this week. He wants nothing to do with that. As a matter of fact, if you'll notice, they have switched lanes. Now, John is going to be going into the lane that his brother beat him out of last week. Let's see what's going to happen. repeat. Looky here. Bob Breen is for reals.
Make it 2 weeks in a row for Bob Breen over his brother John. Well, they call them the Breen Boys Racing Toys, the two trucks you see right there. Let's go down to Army Armstrong, who's going to talk to both of the Breen brothers.
Kind of a unique situation in any motorsports when you get family members involved participating, but actually going against each other. John, this kid's, he's on his way in this sport, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing pretty good this weekend.
Okay, now whose engine is he running right now?
Well, I loaned him mine, you know, and I don't know if I should have done that or not. He brought his own car up here. I think he thought maybe I'd make him walk home.
Well, you're doing a good job. We'll see you later on. Thanks a lot for the interview.
Sure.
This is what you've been looking for ever since you've been in monster truck racing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, I'll tell you, it's a heck of a feeling. You can't, it's something you just can't feel unless you do it yourself. He's the man that taught me, and he shouldn't have taught me this good, I guess. I don't know.
Well, the Breen guys over there talking with Army Armstrong. You know, one of the interesting things is what goes into these different monster trucks and makes them work. Army Armstrong is going to develop one of the stories on wheelbases, short wheelbase or long wheelbase. He's with Bennett Clark of Clydesdale and John Moore of No Problems. Let's go to that right now with Army.
Well, in any kind of motorsport, the chassis is one of the most important pieces of equipment. That's what holds everything together. There's a lot of different theories on chassis. One of the main theory differences is standing with me right now. That difference being a long wheelbase, like this on the Clydesdale, and the short wheelbase, like this on the No Problem truck. Now, we're going to ask Bennett Clark, driver of the Clydesdale, who actually has the longest monster truck wheelbase on the tour. Bennett, why such a long wheelbase?
Well, before on the Clydesdale 1, I had a 114-inch wheelbase, and there was more than once, maybe 5 or 6 times, I finished a race running on my front tires. And that's real scary when you're running looking at the dirt. So I noticed a lot of people had a lot longer wheelbases than I did. I stretched mine out 3 or 4, 5, 8 inches longer than most of the people. And now then it seems to help a lot. The truck seems a lot stabler, but on the turning courses, the shorter trucks have a lot of advantage on me. I can't quite make quite as sharp a turn as they can, but I just have to do the best I can on the turning courses.
Okay, that's one theory. That's one.
Longer straight courses. We're a little underpowered on this end, and I feel that the short wheelbase is going to give me that 50% of the course because I can out-turn almost anybody.
Hopefully that really gives you a little education, especially for those not really up to date on the chassis setups that much, is why you see different trucks, different sizes, Army. Now we're going to get to watch Clydesdale going up against Equalizer right here.
We're going to find out right now if that long wheelbase works. Now, the Equalizer, he's about in between as far as the wheelbases go between the two trucks we saw, and whatever he's doing is working. That kid out of Tennessee keeps bumping up into the next round of elimination, Scott.
The Equalizer, and David Morris from Springfield, Tennessee, continues to be one of the stories in Chicago. Here you see him again in the lane. Army says isn't quite as fast, but he comes flying through with the victory. More monsters in a little bit. We'll be back with a special TNT update segment next. Stay with us on Tough Tracks.
Used to be in this truck. They've outlawed the all-aluminum high-dollar racing engines. Dennis Anderson was the only truck that rule affected. And it didn't seem to affect you too adversely, Dennis, as you've had to step down on engine, but it seems to be a right direction move for you.
Yeah, it really was. They really done me a favor by doing that because I was really stuck on that road act, and I've always wanted one, but put it in the truck and it wasn't a good combination. It was too much power, as far as braking drivetrain, so we toned the motor down, built a new steel block motor, and we're going by the rules now, and everything's working great for us.
First of all, we need to explain to people the Rodak is an all-aluminum version of a big block Chevrolet. Horsepower was no problem. Breakage was a problem. What were you braking?
I was braking automatic transmissions. I'd ring main shafts and stuff like that in them. And, we had the Rodak in there. We'd done 10 shows and busted 10 transmissions.
Okay, now the weight of the truck, that had to have some adverse effect with all the horsepower. What role did the weight play in the breakage?
Right, well, the truck weighs 12,000 pounds, and that strong motor and automatic.
Monster Truck Challenge, the Final Four. Here's how they got there. In the quarterfinals, Gravedigger knocked off the Master of Disaster. Carolina Crusher beat Nightlife, so you got that sensational semi there. The other half of the bracket saw Foot Army, Carolina Crusher, and Gravedigger. There's some great matchups. I really think this is the one the folks in Chicago really came to see, and they get it in the semifinal.
This is going to be a war, and I tell you why. Qualifying was so important because Gravedigger had that quick time, and He goes back to the lane he's comfortable with. He'll be working the left side of the track. He pushes the Carolina Crusher over into the right lane. This is the first time the Crusher's had to run out of this lane. It has not been acting good. Let's see what's going to happen. The bounce is not right for the Crusher. Gravedigger will advance.
Kind of looks like a replay of last week's final, but it's a different race, same winner. Gravedigger with that detuned engine is able to do it again. Gravedigger knocks off Carolina Crusher last week in the final. This week it's the semifinal. Let's go back down to Army Armstrong.
Gary and Dennis, we started the show off just like we are right now. You said you could get a hold of him. Wasn't the case today.
No, he's been running strong the last couple of weeks. I've been having trouble beating him. But there'll be another race another day, and I'll get him.
Thanks a lot for coming over.
Thank you.
Well, you're going to the final, second week in a row, and you're sitting there with a big grin on your face. That's an indication everything's looking good.
Yeah, it is. Looking good. Everything's feeling good. Everything's working good for me right now.
Can you make it 2 in a row and go out of here with a big points lead?
I know I can.
Well, that's confident.
A confident Dennis Anderson, and of course, we'll see him again in the final. Well, here comes Equalizer. We've been talking about the unique design of this truck from driver David Morris and owner-builder Gary Cook. Army Armstrong's exploring that story as he looks into Equalizer.
Once again, the chassis is one of the most important parts of any motorsporting vehicle, and everybody's got their own idea of what works in a monster truck. Now, standing with me right now is really a second-generation individual involved in motorsports, that being Gary Cook, the gentleman that owns and is responsible for building the Equalizer monster truck. And Gary, one of the most unique things about this truck and the chassis setup you have for your driver is the engine location. Can you tell us about the engine location and why you built it that way?
We felt like the truck would balance better by getting the engine as low as possible and to the rear to get the weight off of the front end so that when you hit, it won't tend to nosedive. It'll tend to try to level out more so than nosedive. Kind of a stock car. I used to run stock cars for several years, a long time ago, and we tried to take some of the principles from stock cars over into this.
Okay, now, David, you're new to the monster truck world. You're the kid on the block, but you're running right up with the top 3 and 4 trucks in the country because you do have a good truck to drive. What does it feel like driving this truck?
It feels like to me that the way the suspension is, it helps me keep a better control of the truck, and I think it's not as much abuse on the driver by it being soft.
So it is a soft ride for you compared to the other monster trucks?
I think so.
Gary brought out an interesting point there. The softness is a result of spring setup, and
Patience is such a big part of any form of motorsports, and you can see it there with Equalizer. Now, Army, we get to see Equalizer try and knock off Bob Breen, who's been outstanding in Wild Hair.
Remember, the Equalizer is the only truck that's won out of this right lane all afternoon long. This is a close race. Oh, I have no idea who won that. From our viewpoint, it was a toss-up.
Too close to call, and we'll just have to wait until they read it. The electronic eye will tell us who won between the green truck, Bob Breen, and Wild Hair did get the win over Equalizer. What a great race, and let's go ahead and take a look at it one more time. We'll come to the, if you will, end zone camera as they come right into your living room, and you'll see on this last surge, it indeed is the Wild Hair and Bob Breen getting the victory. So we got the final set up, and what a matchup it's going to be. Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger against Bob Breen and Wild Hair. It's the final, and it's next when we come back with more exciting. They have come through the field here at Chicago's Amphitheater on tough tracks. The TNT Monster Truck Challenge is down to 2. Gravedigger and Dennis Anderson against Wild Hair and Bob Breen. But we understand that there is a problem with Wild Hair. He's broken part of his suspension, is what we're being told, but apparently he will be able to race in the final. Army Armstrong's headed down that way to get with Bob Breen and find out exactly what the situation is with Wild Hair. Army?
Well, Bob, we understand this is not going to be the way you won in the final. You're all pumped up. Your brother comes over and said you have a problem with the front left suspension. What is it?
Yeah, I've got one of my U-boats pulled the threads out of it, and I've got a traction bar that busted the bolts off in it, and one end of it's just hanging on there.
Okay, now Dennis Anderson doesn't know about this. Are you going to go up there and play mind games with him and not let him know and try to make him make a mistake?
That's right. That's part of it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
What's that Kenny Rogers say? You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Well, that's the game Bob's going to play right here. I'm going to tell you, Gravedigger's flat going to get after it, Army.
You know, you just referred to a musical tune. I'm going to refer to one myself. I think the Gravedigger's going to go through here like the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, because he's sitting in his nest. He loves that left side. It's worked all night long for him. Breen He told us he's not going to be a player for this thing. He's going to try to psych him out. I don't believe you're going to psych out the Gravedigger today in Chicago. This kid is destined for that second win of the year.
The sensationally popular Gravedigger, and Dennis Anderson from Chesapeake, Virginia, goes up against Wild Hare, ready to go at it with Bob Breen from Jefferson City, Missouri, and they are off.
I'll tell you, Hare went after him a little bit. He didn't let Anderson have a free ride, but Anderson's going to go to the bank on Monday morning with first place money.
For the second week in a row, Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger have come away winners, and what a great start this is on the TNT Challenge for 1989. Let's go to Army.
Well, Dennis Anderson, you lived up to what you said you were going to do. You made it 2 in a row, so you're going to definitely jump on top of this national point chase. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, we knew that our points were started, and I wanted to go ahead and get the points, you know, undercover here, so I wanted to line up with Bobby, and I did, and I put him away, and that's what I was here to do.
Well, we're going to let you get back to your wife and crew. Congratulations on the second win in a row. You're the man they're all going to have to come after. Once again, congratulations.
All right, thanks a lot.
We're going to bounce over here to Bobby. Bob, you were all excited before the run. The truck's running better than it ever has before, but something happened on that last run. Can you tell us what it was?
Well, I had trouble yesterday when I broke that front suspension, and I had it welded today, and we got done just like 15 minutes after the show started. Welding it, we really didn't have time to get a good weld on it, and when it broke that traction bar again, it made these bolts up here give way.
But you found what you were looking for, haven't you? I mean, it's there. It's just a question of if you hadn't have broken, you'd have been right in there with him.
Yeah, I think I could get him a good weld for his money. If I'm going to get beat, I just need to get beat by one of the best, and he is.
Next week, can you get him?
Yeah, I'll have it done by then, ready.
You gotta love that form of motorsports. You can just keep coming back. There's always next week, and Bob Breen will be coming back. But Army, it's 2 for 2 in Chicago for Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger.
Anderson showing the way early in '89. The question is, can he stay there, or will USA won? We haven't seen him at all today. Be back chasing him for the championship. We'll find out weekly on Tough Track, Scott.
Always the best in sensational motorsports on Tough Track. You know, this time we've made history with the first monster truck racing ever in the historical Chicago International Amphitheater. And you know there's going to be history made with monster truck action every week. So get the best seat in the house right here on Tough Track. For Army Armstrong, I'm Scott Douglas. We'll see you next week.